Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. This is just going to be our daily Bitcoin update video. We took the shorts yesterday. Very simple at the moment. The fact that we couldn't get that 24k close is significant. There's some serious sell pressure coming in there, and kind of a floor being, a ceiling being established at 24k. So played it down to 23k. You got below 23k. What are you going to do today? And that's the big question, because it's a significant day. We got the CPI print. I'm going to touch on this in greater detail in my daily cryptocurrency general market update video. But we got the CPI print coming out for the US, and this is market moving. It has been every time we've had a CPI print. Often it's done what we haven't expected. So the last print that we had was 9.1%, very high. The consensus and kind of forecasts at the moment, or certainly the consensus, is around about 8.7, so a lower CPI print. Now, theoretically, that should be good for markets, but even if it comes out at 8.7, that's still completely unacceptable and really still drives the Fed's mandate. They have inflation levels set at like 2.5% for next year. That's where they want to be. And they're going to steer their monetary policy based on that. And we know we had the jobs report, and we're going to touch on this in a lot more detail in my daily cryptocurrency market update video. But we had the jobs report, which came out extremely strong. And this, I think, is going to, or was certainly a factor. One reason markets sold off on this was because they know that this kind of gives the Fed the mandate, or upholds the mandate that they have to continue to take liquidity from markets via interest rate hikes and a reduction of the balance sheet, which really starts to kick in September. Are we going to have a Rectember for the cryptocurrency market? Potentially, I think we will for all markets. Very key where we are. There's a number of things I'm watching. We've seen open interest actually drop into the CPI print. We also saw the cryptocurrency market and a variety of other markets actually sell off before today. Now, I think this is people taking risk off the table, and they'll look to probably reallocate it or not, depending on what the CPI print is and depending on what comes of it. So how do we see markets react? This is going to be the big thing for today. Dropping down to the daily time zones. Very simple what we're playing here. Yesterday we were up here and we said, look, the fact that you can't get this 24k close, look for that downside. You also had on the daily a number of what you would call bearish deviations on the RSI, on the money inflow index, and you also had it on your, or slightly on your accumulate and distribute index. So these are all sort of volume plus price based indexes, based indicators. And you can see that, they're kind of showing that this move is somewhat running out of momentum. That being said, you are still technically, other than here, failing to put in a new low here. So I'm kind of torn between going long and short into this. The safer play, I think, would really be to just to sit and wait and see what happens. Do we break this trend line and come back down? You guys know that I have an overarching view that I think that this is nothing more than a relief rally. I think relief rallies happen consistently in a bear market, and I believe that this is one. There's a combination of things that would have driven this. Repricing of interest rate hikes towards the end of the year. The Fed very much said, okay, we're going to continue to be very forward given. We're going to give lots of forward advice and we're going to be very harsh. And then they kind of said, okay, well, we're going to let the data decide. That's why this is so significant, this CPI print that we're going to get in the next 3.5 hours, I believe. So 1:30. It's currently 10 a.m. here. It's going to be really significant. And then I think we're going to get some more forward guidance. I think there's a number of speakers coming out today. And this is all going to move markets. And you can see, given what we've seen so far, people are taking risk very much off the table into this economic data reveal. Bitcoin dominance actually has shocked me of just how much further down it's came. And I think this has a lot to do with the kind of low liquidity and not really that much interest from an investment point of view, because people are riding altcoins up more aggressively. Altcoins have done extremely well. We're not really going to touch on that, although I believe that potentially there are going to be some absolute mammoth shorts that we're looking to take on a number of altcoins, because it's kind of make or break time for a number of alts. So what do we want to see today? Well, first thing you want to see is 23k hold. 23k doesn't hold, look towards 22, 21k. that can hold and significantly hold, and you hold this sort of intermediate trend line, look for that upside and a repush here. The big question is, do you now actually get that close? Look for the main close around 24K, and that's going to allow you to push up. The issue you've got now is we've seen harsh rejections. We've never actually got that daily close. So a rejection yesterday, pretty harsh one. Obviously going into the CPI print. Do we then see that roll? And do you break this trend line and look to come back down to these lows here? If I was to bias, even though things are very bearish right now, I don't really like being on the side of Twitter. One of the best things you can do as a trader and an investor is ignore what goes on Twitter, because it's just opinions, really. And there's so many of them out there. You want to have your own kind of bias and opinion going forwards. Personally, I could see a bit of a ripsaw event taking place with the CPI. People have de-risked into it. We saw record Ethereum long closes. Do they reassert on a lower number? Or does the market actually go, okay, well, this is showing that the Fed is accurately or convincingly killing off demand. This is going to spell further downside. And the real thing for me is, and I'm going to talk about it again to mention on a later video, is, are we now going from an inflation story to a demand destruction story that is going to be probably just as impactful for markets? Certainly, whilst we've got the high inflation, whilst we've got, which is consumer killing, whilst we've got, and sort of business damaging, and whilst we've got a high interest rate hiking regime that they don't seem to be pivoting on anytime soon, in my opinion. I think they're going to, certainly to the end of the year, pursue this kind of agenda. I think that's probably going to lead to something breaking, and then maybe the pivot comes there. But I don't think, even an 8.7%, if we get that, could be slightly lower, I think. I don't think that's actually going to be sufficient enough for the Fed to go, okay, we're just going to pivot here, which is what I think people are really looking for and hoping for, actually, to be honest. But there's lots of bearish calls going into this. Does look like a good setup for the bears, but this is the kind of trick of markets. They will often give you these setups and then kind of go, we do the complete opposite, essentially. So you're putting in decent structure here. I wouldn't not long this, actually. That sounds mad going into CPI, but seriously, I actually wouldn't not long this, and we may actually take a long going into it. I have kind of a feeling that too many people are expecting CPI print. Okay, bad. Maybe it comes out lower, which is still bad. Maybe you get that pump, and then you get the drop. That's kind of what I'm looking at for today. Some sort of a pump, some sort of an increase in the price. Maybe you do get above that 24K range again. And trick people into thinking, okay, right, everyone get long before you then slam it back down when reality hits. It's going to be very interesting to see how the US equity market opens. If you look at the sort of open already for the US futures market, it's relatively green. UK market's not doing too badly. Asian market is majority down. Dollar, which is the big story with Bitcoin, does this start to reassert? And I think there's a good likelihood of that, but there's lots of sort of things taking place with the FX market. The dollar's had an absolute stomper of a move to the upside. It's seen that rejection after running parity with the euro. Now other central banks are sort of catching up, so the dollar's going to obviously naturally be a little bit firmer. Now it's got some sort of resistance in the other FX markets against it. So it's going to be a very, very interesting day. Just some final thoughts, really, I guess, is, be very careful in regards to trading this. You want to be on the right side, of course, but what is that right side? For me, this still potentially looks like I don't want to be shorting here, right? Because this still somewhat looks like this could really stand the chance of seeing that upside. The problem that you've got is you're betting on the sort of larger downtrend, which is very much a bearish one. Overarching, I believe this is a relief rally, but that doesn't mean it can't squeeze higher. What I will do, and I wasn't going to talk about it on this video, but I might as well, is, I think the US equity market is at that kind of prime spot, ready to sort of roll over. You have this sort of head and shoulders break. Very common that you'll break, you'll come back, you'll retest, and then you can re-enter here and see that downside. And if we do get that, it's very prime to do that. Certainly if you look at your weekly moving average as well, look at where you're rejecting. You're staying on the underbelly of this 30 weekly moving average, in opposition with keeping all the pullbacks above it. Uptrend, now very much downtrend, and all the hallmarks of it. So do we see that roll for the equity market? That's, of course, going to lead crypto. But do we see some sort of a kind of weird rip-sawing event or whipsaw event where we see this kind of initial stab up on the news and then we get that capitulation? Things I'm looking out for today. Not taking any positions yet. Will do later on. May even position into the CPI print depending on the kind of feelings I'm getting going into it, depending on what I'm seeing the other markets doing. But that's really all I've got for you in this one, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the content and you enjoy these daily Bitcoin and cryptocurrency market update videos. If so, a like and a comment is always appreciated. Have a good day, guys. See you in the next one.